here from Youth Entrepreneur Adventures, and today I'm on the couch with Mero Samuel from merosamuel.com, and he is an expert in human behaviour and leadership. So Mero, is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions today?
Absolutely, pleasure to be here.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so specifically, you now work with younger people as well as business people in the corporate world.
Yes.
Specifically in the area of human behaviour and leadership.
Yeah, personal and professional development.
Brilliant. Okay.
Yeah.
So how was it, when leaving high school? How did you kind of get to where you are now in what you're doing?
Probably, I'd like to draw back a little bit earlier than that.
Sure.
I migrated to Australia in 1988,
Mm-hmm.
just to maybe show a little bit of the difficulties that I went through as a student, first at school, and this brings me back to my passion to what I do today in helping students and young people, young adults, to develop both personally and professionally. So I migrated at the age of 9 in '88, and I was at school and I didn't have any friends and I couldn't speak English, and I was picked on. I went through all the stuff that people go through at school, but multiplied a few times over. I was told that I had learning difficulties. I was told that my parents were trying to convince 2 times to actually keep me down a couple of levels, and I went through all the usual struggles as a student, but probably just a little bit more, being an outsider from another country. I was about to say from another world. And growing up, I realised that there was one person. His name was Mr. Stephen Beckham, and he was the man that realised that I wanted to do a little bit more, and he's the one that invested that time and energy in me. So reading was one of my biggest challenges at school, and I was told that I had learning difficulties and reading difficulties and all this stuff that people wanted to impose on me. And I remember I used to stand up in the front of the class to read, and I used to rattle and shake. And then this Mr. Stephen Beckham, I'm not sure if he's still alive, if he's still out there, I would send you many blessings. But this man would stand there and he'd invite me after class and say to me, what can I do to help? Can we practice this passage together? And he'd give me extra little bits and extra bits of encouragement. And I think that just really instilled in me that passion that he had to teach somebody, and that he saw a potential in somebody. So I went through school. I went through high school, and I completed high school. I went to university. I did some studies, and then I went up the corporate ladder. I had my first business at the age of 18. I did so many things growing up, and now since 2004 I started up a consulting and training business. Dealing with the corporates, but something always draws me back to the young people, because I think that's where our potential is.
Beautiful, thank you. So it was like from Stephen Beckham, was that his name?
Mr. Stephen Beckham, that's right.
Mr. Stephen Beckham. So from him kind of giving you that extra inspiration and encouragement, that kind of helped you to move forward and realise that you're perhaps capable of more, is that right?
Absolutely. So I had certain teachers, and I'm sure some of you may relate to this. I had certain teachers that would just randomly pick on me to read. And they knew full well that I didn't have the capacity, but they still put me in that position. And what Mr. Beckham did was he'd say to me, let's work out a deal together. I'm going to tell you, between you and I, as a secret, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to ask you tomorrow to read this particular paragraph. So don't tell anyone else in the class, but can you go home and practice that?
Yeah.
And I used to stand there and I said, look, I don't know what to do. And he'd read it with me and would underline the words and absolutely offered me 100% encouragement. And I thank him that, and I maybe didn't realise the impact that it had on my life later on, but he did so much for me and for my well-being today, because he did believe in me and he did encourage me. So he'd highlight all these words, and the big words, I used to call them big words. So he'd highlight all the words, and I'd go home and I'd practice them, and I'd come back the next day and he'd pretend like it was just random. Who's going to read today? Oh, Mero, get up and read. And all of a sudden I became better because I wasn't put on the spot anymore. So I think that encouragement is essential and very important, because that's what young adults are, that's what young people are. They're a potential. And that potential, if somebody sees it and offers that bit of guidance and support, the levels that can be reached are just unbelievable and ultimately unlimited.